In the late 1990s, millions of people across China found themselves stuck, literally, caught in paralyzed traffic, with highways collapsing under a population that doubled almost overnight. Freight corridors froze, city streets became gridlocked, and trade ground to a halt. Faced with a crisis that threatened the entire nation's future, China unveiled a proposal few could believe: a 200-kilometer underground tunnel, longer than anything built before, slicing beneath mountains and cities in a single bold stroke. Critics said it was too risky, too costly, or just impossible. But 2 decades after China built the world's longest underground tunnel, the country, and the world, would never be the same. What happened beneath the surface that changed everything? Urban China in the late 1990s looked like a pressure cooker with the lid clamped tight. In just 15 years, city populations doubled, swelling from 300 million to more than 600 million. Highways that once carried traffic at 80 kilometers per hour slowed to a crawl, sometimes barely topping 40. Freight trucks idled for hours on ring roads, loaded with goods that couldn't reach factory gates or shipping ports. Major rivers, once reliable trade arteries, clogged with barges waiting their turn to pass through outdated locks. It wasn't just about inconvenience. Factories missed deadlines, perishable goods spoiled, and entire regions lost out on billions in trade. Every day the gridlock deepened. The old infrastructure, built for a much smaller, slower nation, was buckling under the weight of explosive growth. China's economy ran on speed, but the arteries of commerce were seizing up. The challenge was clear: find a way to break through, or watch the country's future stall in traffic. Blueprints for the tunnel looked more like something out of science fiction than civil engineering. On paper, it would stretch an astonishing 200 kilometers, farther than the distance from Beijing to Tianjin, and all of it beneath the surface. The design called for a multi-deck layout, with separate levels for high-speed trains, freight, and emergency vehicles. To carve through the earth, engineers specified a tunnel boring machine with a diameter of 15 meters, roughly the height of a 5-story building. That's not all. The route would cut across 17 distinct geological strata, from soft river silt to ancient bedrock, demanding a level of geological mapping that had never been attempted at this scale in China. Planners pored over seismic charts, soil samples, and hydrological models, trying to anticipate every twist and hazard hidden underground. The lead engineers, many of whom had cut their teeth on the first wave of China's expressways, now faced a challenge orders of magnitude greater. Every calculation, every material choice, every safety protocol had to be reimagined. The audacity of the plan was hard to overstate. No country had ever attempted to link entire provinces with a single continuous underground artery, let alone one designed to last a century. Even among the project's own architects, there were moments when the sheer scale of the blueprint seemed almost impossible. But in the eyes of the planners, the only thing more unthinkable than trying was standing still. Inside the tunnel, the pressure never let up. In 2005, a surge of groundwater punched through a weak point, flooding nearly 2 kilometers of newly bored passage. Pumps screamed for hours, but water kept rising, forcing crews to scramble for high ground. Days later, a rock burst sent shards flying through the work zone, crushing steel supports and injuring several miners. The tunnel boring machine, already battered from weeks of non-stop grinding, seized up when its cutter head jammed in a seam of quartzite. Mechanics worked around the clock, but the repairs dragged on, bleeding time and money. The project's budget, once projected at $2 billion, ballooned past $5 billion. Tensions boiled over. When paychecks arrived late and safety fears mounted, hundreds of workers walked off the job, leaving a skeleton crew to hold the line. In the break rooms, shift supervisors counted the hours until the next crisis. For many, the only certainty was that the tunnel demanded everything, and sometimes it took more than anyone expected. On a cold morning in late December, the tunnel's 2 ends finally met, deep underground, after years of relentless digging. Rail officials in crisp uniforms lined up for the cameras, while media crews jostled for a clear shot of the ceremonial ribbon. The first freight train rumbled through, headlights flickering off the tunnel's fresh concrete walls, pulling carriages loaded with electronics, machinery, and fresh produce. For the workers who had spent years in the dust and darkness, that moment felt like daylight breaking after a long night. Within hours, logistics companies were recalculating their schedules. Trains that once crawled over mountain passes or detoured for days now shot straight through, slicing travel times by more than half. In some regions, what used to take a full day by truck could now be done in just a few hours by rail. For city officials and business owners, the tunnel's opening wasn't just an engineering win, it was a promise delivered. Suddenly, the impossible was routine. Goods moving at speeds the country had only dreamed of, linking provinces that once felt worlds apart. The breakthrough wasn't just a technical milestone. It was the start of a new rhythm for China's economy, a shift that everyone could feel, from the conductors in the cab to the traders checking their watches. On December 20th, 2005, when the final section of China's record-setting underground tunnel broke through, freight transit times across the region dropped by 70% almost overnight. In just 2 decades, the project's 200 kilometers of reinforced concrete and precision engineering reshaped how people and goods move through China. Official records show that the population in urban centers doubled during this period, while economic reports attribute billions in growth to the tunnel's impact on logistics and trade. Yet some aspects remain undisclosed. Detailed construction archives and full technical blueprints are still classified by the Ministry of Transport. What is clear, however, is that the tunnel's success established a new global benchmark for underground infrastructure and inspired similar projects worldwide. Today, high-speed trains and vast cargo flows pass beneath cities that once faced gridlock. The evidence leaves no doubt. When faced with a national crisis, China's engineers changed the rules of what is possible underground.